Have you ever wanted to grow paperwhite bulbs inside but didn't know where to start? Well, today's video we're going to talk about everything you need to know to grow paperwhites or any bulb indoors. What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to Horticulture Geek. I'm Ray, and thank you so much for joining me today as we talk about growing bulbs, specifically paperwhites today, but any bulbs, inside. This is a very popular thing to do around the holiday season, and I wanted to bring a guide and show you how I do that and give you some tips and tricks to help you along the way. So, the first thing that you need to do is find some paperwhite bulbs. And I have some here. And now these come in lots of different varieties. There are multiple different varieties of paperwhites, okay? So you're not necessarily too worried about a specific type of paperwhite as long as you get a paperwhite. So you can see that this is paperwhite Ziva. Z-I-V-A, but really it doesn't matter. Just find a bulb that looks good and healthy. Okay, so let's open this package up and we'll talk about what do I mean by a good healthy bulb. And this is a paperwhite, daffodil, tulip, crocus, amaryllis, any kind of bulb. You want to make sure that it is a good bulb, okay? So when you pull it out of the package or in the package, you can do this in the package still. So if you're shopping at a store on the shelf, you can check these things in the package. So you want to give the bulb a squeeze. It should be firm. If it has a little give, it's okay, but it should be a firm bulb. You do not want it to be mushy. If it's mushy, then obviously it has spoiled, it is ruined, it is no good at that point. And so you also want to make sure that it does not have any mold growing on it. And that's pretty easy to spot. You can actually see rings of mold and grossness growing on the exterior of the bulb. The bulb may still be viable if it has mold on it, but it's just better not to have to deal with that if you can avoid it, okay? So now that we've chosen some good bulbs and you've picked out whatever bulb you want to plant, well, now we have to figure out how to plant it, right? So the next thing that you would do is find a vessel, something to plant the bulbs in. Now, when we plant most things in the garden, we are looking for containers with drainage holes. However, in this situation with doing the bulbs inside, you want containers that do not have drainage holes necessarily for paperwhites, okay? Now, if you're doing an amaryllis bulb or something like that, drainage holes are fine. But for paperwhites, you don't necessarily want or need a drainage hole. And there are different schools of thought on this. And so you may watch a different garden blog and they'll tell you something completely different. And that's fine. That is okay. This is how I do it here at Horticulture Geek Gardens. So, and I have several containers here that I'm going to show you. And I actually have a package of bulbs that I've already planted up. You've been seeing them sitting here. And I chose to do a metal urn. Now, if you followed my channel for a while, you've seen this urn before. We use it in the garden. It's just a good little vessel. But you know that it does have a drainage hole in it. So how do I overcome that? Well, I overcame that by simply lining the pot. So you can see down in there is my drainage holes. Okay, nice pot, but I needed to line it. Now, here's where it gets good news, people, because you can use anything you have on hand. This is literally a Tupperware bowl from IKEA. And I've got they come in a whole stack of different sizes, and they're all nesting in there. And for me, fortunately, this particular size fits perfectly into my urn. So that's a good tip right there, is if you have a pot, vase, or urn that you want to use, but you don't necessarily want to plant directly into it, find something cheap like a Tupperware bowl or some other container that you can then nestle down into that one pot. Now, Other options include clear glass containers like this one here. We're actually going to use this one here in a minute to plant up the new bulbs. You can use terracotta pots or concrete pots. This is an amaryllis. You can even use, and I've used this before, and it turns out really pretty. You can use something like a soup tureen. Just take the lid off, remove your soup ladle, and now you're left with a beautiful vessel that you can plant bulbs into. And since this is not a permanent planting, you're just wanting these for a few weeks, you just plant them in here, enjoy them, and when the blooms are done, you can disassemble it, clean it, and put it right back in the cabinet or the china cabinet, wherever it came from. So don't stifle your creativity. If you have a vessel that you want to use, feel free to get out there and use it. And if you don't have something fancy and pretty, don't worry about that. If you want to plant directly into that white Tupperware bowl or a pretty melamine bowl that you have, do it. It's whatever works for you in your space and whatever you find attractive. Now, there are two different ways to plant bulbs once you've picked out your vessel or your container. And you can plant directly in soil, or you can plant in gravel or some other type of soilless medium like rocks, gravel, glass beads, crystals, all those fun little things you can get. So now this pot here, I planted this about a week and a half ago, believe it or not. So these bulbs came out of their package and they looked just like this. They had their little tips, but that was it. And in a week and a half, they've come to this. Now, I want to bring the camera in close and point out something. This is the soil method. I planted these in the soil. Let me grab the camera and bring you closer so I can point out some things. Alrighty. So when I planted these, you want to plant the bulbs to about middle way into your soil. Now, what you will find is, you can see an example of this, is when these bulbs start putting out their roots, this is why I wanted to show you this, they vigorously put out roots. And they will lift themselves out of your planting medium. That is okay. Don't panic. A lot of people will have a tendency, they want to come in here and grab this bulb and shove it down and think, oh gosh, I've got to get that back in there. If you shove that, you're going to break your roots and ultimately do more damage to the plant than is really needed. At this point, this plant has set roots and it's stable. And those roots are interlocked with the other roots. Now what you can do is you could brush a little soil around it and fix it up, right? And now the other step that we're going to take with this pot is we're actually going to top dress it. And so I have some moss here that we're going to top dress. But I haven't done that yet because I wanted you guys to see this. I wanted you to understand that once you set them in your planting medium, whether that's dirt, gravel, or rocks, okay, once they start putting out their bulbs, their roots, they are going to move on you. Don't panic. It is okay. All right, so now we understand how we got this done. I'm going to plant some for you. Now, whether you plant them in dirt or gravel, the process is the same, okay? So we're going to plant in this glass bowl today. And we are going to start with our gravel base. And like I said, you can use glass rocks, glass pebbles, jewels. If you go to Michael's or Joann's or even Lowe's and Home Depot or Walmart, they're going to have a whole bunch of different things to choose from. And you can get fancy craft gravel. You can honestly just go to the hardware store and get a bag of pea gravel. So it's whatever you want to do, whatever your budget will allow. Do what's best for you. That's the beauty of a project like this, is it is tailored to you and your needs. So don't be scared to try it. So we're simply just going to take our gravel and put it right into our pot. Okay. And we can just spread that around, level it out as best as we can. I want to get this up a little bit higher where you can see it. There we go. Perfect. So now we're just going to take our bulbs. Okay? And we're just gonna nestle them down into that gravel to about their midway point. Let me bring the camera closer so you can see this as well. All right, so you can see that one there. I'm gonna try to do this next one without being too shaky, but it's hard to hold the camera. So I just kind of gently wiggle it down into the gravel. Okay? So that's all you have to do. And we can just come in here with another one. Knock off some of the loose stuff if we want to. And gently wiggle him down into the gravel. All right, so let's flip that camera around and go back to looking at the whole picture. All right, so this bag of bulbs that I bought came with 5 bulbs per package, which works out handy to kind of do a little ring with one in the center. And you can see we've done that here with this one, and we'll do the same for this guy. So we'll just kind of space these out, get them in there. And if you have to move them around, you see I just picked that one up and moved it around, that's fine. Fuss with it and play with it until you like the way it looks. Now let's look at this bulb right here. This is a good, healthy bulb, and this bulb actually has babies. And so if you look, there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 bulbs. So 3 babies coming off of this mother bulb right here. So since that's gonna be a good hardy bloomer, I'm gonna choose that to be my center. If you don't have a multifaceted bulb like this, it's okay, not every bag has them. You still just keep your regular pattern. But if you're like me and happen to come across one like this, put it towards the center and that'll help fill your center up. So we're just gonna nestle this guy right down in there. All right, and now we're just gonna take our fingers and smooth that gravel back out. So the next step that I'm gonna take, which is completely optional, you could be done with this right here, but when you're working in a glass bowl like this, I kind of find it fun to do a layered look, because you can see the different levels in this glass jar. So I'm gonna be putting some decorative bigger pebbles around the top, and we'll just kind of bring those in and put them around. Being careful not to just kind of throw them in there. We don't want to drop or break the tips off of our paper whites. And so this is the same concept for any bulb, remember that. So if you want to put some tulips in a vase and grow those inside, or some crocus or an amaryllis bulb, all these concepts are the same. You just want to be careful and you want to safeguard the tip of your plant, because that's where your flowers are coming from. And so this acts as a fun, another layer, and it gives you a little more stability to help support those bulbs, because these will have a tendency to get big. But we have a trick for that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. All right, I'm going to finish putting these rocks gingerly around the top. All right, so I have got that all done now. Let me bring that in close so you can kind of see. So you can kind of see the layered look there. And if you wanted to do multiple layers, you could do that. If you're into stripes, maybe you could find like a black rock, and then a white rock, and then a black rock, and a white rock. The sky is the limit. Let your imagination guide you in how you want it to look. So they're all in there. They look pretty good. So the next thing we want to do is, once you have them set, is it's time to water them in. Now, here's where it gets a little different. If you're growing in dirt, you want to water them in very well, but you do not want to have them standing in swampy water, okay? Because the soil and the water, it's just not that good of an idea to do that. So you're going to keep these well moist without letting them get swampy or excessively drowned in water or wet, okay? In the gravel method, we're going to be a little different. We want to actually bring the water, fill the pot up to the water to about that halfway mark of the bulb. And we're going to maintain that water level so that these bulbs can get in there and get rooted in. So I've got some water here. we go. Perfect. Now, you have to be real careful. You don't want to pour water down the crown of the bulb or where that stem is coming up. And if your bulb doesn't have a stem yet, that's okay too. But don't pour water down that that stem, or where that stem will come up. The crown of the bulb is what that's called, because you don't want water to penetrate down into that bulb. It'll start rotting it from the inside out. And that's a good rule of thumb for any bulb. Amaryllis, tulip, daffodil, it doesn't matter. You want to avoid pouring water directly down into that point, okay? So this is all good to go. I've got it completed. So now I just have to wait. And these will grow and get big, and they'll hopefully put on a beautiful display for us very quickly. Now I'm going to shift gears back to this pot because, you know, if you don't want to grow in rocks, you want to grow in soil, maybe soil is what you have available, perfect. You can absolutely do that. But if you're like me, you may not want to just have exposed dirt around your bulbs. So that's when you can dress your pot up. So I just went and picked up some moss. And so we're just gonna put this moss in, and this will hide the Tupperware container as well, and just give everything a nice, fresh, clean look. So again, the sky's the limit. Maybe you want to plant in soil, but you have pea gravel handy, so you want to top dress with pea gravel. That is okay. The top dress is inconsequential to how these bulbs are going to perform for you at this point. So just take your time and work your top dress in, and get it to where you think it looks nice and fun. And that's the name of the game here. You're just trying to make something fun, because this is for inside the house. You want to enjoy this, so you don't want it to look a hot mess. You know, we can get away with a lot more shady business out in the garden than we really want to get away with inside the house, right? So just take your time and move this moss around. And you know, this moss comes in different colors and textures, so you can really get some fun, different looks just by choosing a different type of mossy texture to go into your container. So have fun with this. I can't say it enough. Don't let this process intimidate you. If you're a beginning gardener, you've never done this before, it can be a little overwhelming. Do not let this hold you back from trying to do something that you want to do. All right, I think I've about got this done. I probably should have set the camera on high speed or done something. Maybe I'll speed it up in editing. I don't know. But anyway, just have a cup of coffee. Spend some time with Ray as we get this done. Okay, that's good enough for now. What a difference that makes, right? All right. So, my final tip for you about growing bulbs inside, specifically paperwhites, is once they get about this height and growth, so this, like I said, is about a week and a half to 2 weeks right here. And you can see the bulbs are starting to form their flower heads, and the stems are starting to elongate. Now, if you've ever grown a daffodil of any kind of variety, and paperwhites are a form of daffodil, you know that they tend to put on very long stems. And with those long stems, they can get a little floppy, especially in a planting situation like this where they're not fully planted and they have room to move. Now, here's a little tip for you, which we can stunt the growth of our stems without halting flower production. And Linda Vodder actually gave this tip on her channel, about a week or so ago. And so I'm sharing it as well. So what you want to do is get you a nice clear liquor. I have a vodka here, and this is a cheap vodka. It don't get much cheaper than this, I don't believe. Plastic bottle. You are not looking for anything fancy. But if you're a gardener, a good bottle of cheap vodka you want to keep on hand. I don't personally drink this, But if you want to make herb tinctures in the summer and stunt the growth of the daffodils and stuff, you always need some of this on hand. And you can use gin, you can use vodka, anything, any kind of clear liquor you can use. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 9 parts of water to 1 part of our liquor. And so 9 tablespoons of water is half a cup. Roughly half a cup of water, and I've already got that measured here, to 1 tablespoon of our clear liquor. All right, so I got that in there. Mix it around. All right, so the whole point here is not to burn the bulb, but to slightly stunt the growth. And that little splash of liquor will do that for us. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna pour this gently around our container. Being careful again not to pour it down the crown of our bulb. And that's it, folks. Now, if you want your daffodils to get taller, then obviously that's just an extra thing you don't have to do. But if you are like me and you don't want them to necessarily get real tall and flop over, then that's how you handle that. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it has been useful to you. Maybe you found something new in this video that you didn't know before. And maybe you're a new paper white grower or gardener who was looking for how to do this type of thing. I've said it before in this video, but I will say it again. Don't be afraid to give it a shot. You can't hurt anything. Worst case scenario, if you mess something up, your bulb doesn't grow. It's not the end of the world. So don't be afraid to give this a shot because when it works, and it truly is beautiful. So like I said, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that it has inspired you. So whether you plant in rocks or dirt, no matter what kind of bulb you use, just give it a shot. It's not too late. You may not have things ready for Christmas, but hey, New Year's is the week after that, and then there's multiple holidays. Amaryllis and things like this do great for Valentine's Day as well. And they're just good any time of the year if you just like a pop of the garden and a pop of color in the house. So give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. Tag me in your photos. You can tag me on Facebook or Instagram at Horticulture Geek, and let me know how your paper whites are doing or any other bulbs that you do. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. It means a lot to our channel when our viewers give our video a like and leave us a comment. But until next time, guys, I think I'll pan out in a second and leave you with a shot of these bulbs on the dining room table ready to go for the season. But until next time, from my garden to yours, I wish you all the best and happy gardening.